Hey, I'm Dave. Welcome to Shop Talk. What's big on the minds of the people who are watching the show this week, Glen? What's going on?
I don't know, Dave, but what's big on my mind right now, since you're familiar with Task Manager?
I've heard of it.
Saw something about some kind of glitch or
Bug?
problem or bug.
Yeah, so there's a new one happened this week in a Windows update that came out. There's a KB number, which I can put in the description. I don't have it handy, but it is basically an instance where when Task Manager exits, the window goes away and it goes to unwind the process, and for some reason it blocks and never exits. Now, Task Manager is smart enough that when you try to start a new one, it goes and tries to talk to that old one. It's presumably no longer answering the secret handshake that it's supposed to, and so you get another Task Manager. And so to a lot of people, this will be a transparent case until you go into Task Manager and look and say, holy cow, I've got like 5 Task Managers running now because I've started it 5 times and exited it 5 times, but I've really got 5 fresh ones, and 4 of them are the old stale ones. And my guess, I looked at the code because Microsoft gave me the code to the XP Task Manager a couple of years ago. And I went and looked at the exit code, and I noticed that it has a tray icon cleanup. And so, remember, Task Manager has a little tray icon down by the clock, which shows the CPU meter, and you can right-click on it and stuff. But that's part of the shell. So I never wanted Task Manager to block because the shell was messed up, which is what I think this is a case of. So everything it did with the tray icon on its own independent thread. So if it ever locked up or jammed, just that one thread, you wouldn't get a tray icon updating, but everything else would work fine with Task Manager. And so I wrote it that way. But at the exit point, you have to go and synchronize all these threads. And so it sends out a private message that says time to exit, and it waits for its handle to clean up. And I think it has a timeout on the wait of 60 seconds, if I remember. But for at least 60 seconds, it's going to hang around because there's apparently a jam in the tray icon so that it's not responding, or it's not exiting, or it's not returning. And so it's just waiting for the tray icon to clean up, and it's never cleaning up. And it's during process exit, so this hasn't got many resources held, but I mean, it's still got the process active as an item. And what a lot of people don't realize is on a memory map system like Windows, if you have 10 task managers and each one has 500K of code, that's a total of 500K of code because it just uses the same copy for each of the processes, and there's no extra copies loaded. Now, it does have some local data needs and stack needs and stuff that do add to the memory load, but Task Manager is reasonably lightweight, or used to be anyway. So yeah, that's the biggest issue with Task Manager that I know of. And of course, my information is 20 years out of date, but that was my kind of hot take on it.
So there's only one instance of it in the tray.
Yes, because presumably the tray icon is not answering.
Right.
And so
okay.
I don't think you'll get 5 tray icons.
And if you have multiple versions of Task Manager open, would they show up if you Control-Tab, flip through your windows, or is it sort of, it's running but it's not showing, and it's there but it's not there?
At this stage in its life cycle, it's already exited, signed its last paperwork, it's got one foot in the grave, another on a banana peel, and it's ready to go, but it's just waiting for its children to die first. Here, that's as much as I can personify it.
And the only way you can see that is when you fire up Task Manager, and that's where you can see that there's actually still this remnant of it active in the system. Okay.
I mean, other tools, Process Explorer could also see it, but yes.
Yeah.
The only time a normal user will see it is if they then look at the process list in Task Manager.
Okay, that's pretty neat. Normally I'd move to another question, but I don't think we can go on much further without addressing that fine shirt you're wearing there, Mr. Plumber.
Oh yeah, this is from David Sebeski. He sent me this when I was working on my PDP-11 stuff, and I had a guy from DEC here, Rob Short.
Right.
And he's from Microsoft. He was the hardware, basically the head of hardware for Windows NT. And as I remember it anyway. And he was from DEC, came over from Ireland because Bob Armstrong hired him. And Bob Armstrong is the guy that actually designed my PDP-1134 and stuff. So having Rob Short come by to help me with my PDP-11s was kind of like having Jimmy Page come by to help you tune your guitar because you're learning the guitar. So it was pretty humbling. We went through the power supply and we ruled out a couple of things like the thermal overload sensor, but that's as far as we got because it's actually a bear to work on. So he's going to go read the schematics and so on and see if he's got any more theories, but we'll see.
Now you said Bob Armstrong designed your PDP-11, not just yours.
No, all the 1134s.
Oh, okay.
And some other models too. I don't know about the 24 and maybe it was the 05. A lot of the smaller systems, I think, were the ones that he specialized in. But
and now you had Rob and Leo P.
Lou P.
Or Lou, sorry, I was going to say Leo, over to your place like a year or so ago. And
It's funny because it probably is almost a year ago, and that's when I sent the power supply for the arcade disk drive out to Glitchworks to get fixed, and it's still not back yet. So I got to bug Jonathan because he's a genius, but he works kind of sporadically, and I think he's working. I think I got stuck in the hobbyist basket, and he's probably got a full queue of professional work to do. So it's easy for that stuff to slip by. But it's been a while, so I got to go bug him about it.
Yeah, there you go. Mental note. So we got a few questions from the last one. Still some. You did the big episode on the web outage, and then we covered it on ShopTalk. So Tom E. Whalen says, why aren't DNS entries that have been previously resolved cached locally? So if the DNS server goes down, the IP addresses can still be retrieved from the cache.
Indeed. Good idea. And of course they are, in fact, and they're cached at many levels, and they can be cached even in your home at your router or in your operating system by your TCP IP system, or your naming system, I should say. The problem is when that information gets out of date. Now, let's say the server gets a new IP address because they moved it around to a different machine or a different cluster or a different rack or whatever happened, that the machine now has a new IP address. Well, your old cached one points at a machine that's no longer there, so it's no good. You need the canonical address to be updated. And they usually have a time to live. So your cache will have a value, and it could be valid for 6 days or I don't think you can go 6 minutes, but let's say 6 hours. And depending on what the domain name has set for its time to live or time to live, I don't even know. Which is it? Which would it be? Time to live? Time to live? I don't know.
I'm going to go with live.
Okay, we'll go with time to live then. That makes a little more sense.
Because after the time to live, it would no longer be live.
Live, exactly. It's not time until live. So we'll go with time to live. Yeah. So having a cached copy of it doesn't help you once it's out of date. That's the short answer.
Okay. Matt 2010 says, wouldn't it be a good idea to have backup and more backup of standby type DNS to help with any main DNS downtime, whether planned or not? Sort of like a redundancy, but again, if it's...
and you can structure DNS so that it can be multi-continent and stuff, but you then need to be able to respond to that IP on both continents in such a way that's useful to the user. So having a DNS in England that points to a machine in US East 1 isn't going to help you a lot. So
inside of my own mind, scary place.
Scary place.
So short of a massive power outage, DNS seems to be the Achilles heel of the internet.
It really is, but it's not a weak point. It is more like a linchpin. So it's not an Achilles heel. But if you can sever all of them at once, then you could take down the internet effectively. But of course, it's massively distributed, and there are at least 26 root name servers, and those are, of course, not single machines. They are huge clusters and banks of machines. And so DNS can be overwhelmed. You probably couldn't take them all down, but you could maybe overwhelm them if you had, a couple billion Cloudflare instances or Azure instances, and they all attacked. But even now, they've got mitigations for that kind of thing. They'll shut down traffic. And so that's probably why there hasn't been a successful massive DNS denial of service attack. It's not that people haven't tried. They just have not been able to accomplish it. So fortunately, so far.
So would it be the Achilles heel or the linchpin, or is it one of the...
It kind of is. There are other things could go wrong with routing and stuff like that, or power. We could have a national power outage and stuff like that. But in terms of TCP IP and Ethernet, the big thing is being able to, the first thing you got to do is to know, here's where I'm trying to go. Where is that?
Where is that?
And if you can't find out where that is, you can't go there. But they're aware, and they've been strengthening it for years. So.
Yeah. The vanished. Can you talk about the future of ternary computing, whether it would be more useful than quantum computing for general purpose?
I would, but I've already moved on to quaternary computing and quintile computing because I think that's where the future is. So I could talk about ternary computing at length, but it'd be so boring compared to quaternary computing that I just don't see a point in it. So why don't we just move on?
I was almost nodding off already, but I didn't want to say anything.
There you go.
So. Yeah. Don Eisenhower. How does one submit questions for consideration on Dave's Garage?
Let me tell you.
Well, first of all, we're not on Dave's Garage, but...
That's true. And that's a good point. We're not on Dave's Garage. So if you're getting this and you're getting it on Dave's Attic, which is where it airs, because you're a fan of Dave's Garage perhaps, and the algorithm figures out you probably want this content, It would be great if you would consider subscribing to the channel because we're trying to build a subscriber base of Dave's Attic and the podcast format and keeping it separate from the main channel. So to the extent that you are willing and able to subscribe and put up with us once a week, I would appreciate that. In terms of getting your question answered, we're pretty good at going through everything that's got a question mark and is asked on a topic for either a Dave's Garage or a Dave's Attic topic. So either of those videos, if you go in there and leave a question with a question mark, we will try and catch that, and then we go through them all. We certainly do read them all. We don't answer every one, but we try to answer every interesting one within, about an hour or so.
The ones that we can fit. And just to drive that point home, there's a question here from Anonymax UK, which is question mark for attention. And then he's got a question mark. So
okay.
He put a question mark in, he got his name asked. That's how you do it. Stick a question mark. That's the first filter. Okay. Out of order says, you never hear about this happening to banks. Are they on some other system with better controls, or do they just not publicize when they have a problem?
Banks are generally on mainframes. So a bank is going to not be running on a big rack of servers on an Azure cluster. Usually it's going to be running on an IBM system, whatever it is these days, a big Z16 mainframe. And it could still be problematic where your client apps can't locate the mainframe because DNS is down. But if the ATM is there, the ATM can probably find the mainframe, and so you don't get that kind of outage. And banks are built for active and being able to reconcile transactions across regions because it's kind of what banking is all about. So they do it from day zero. You can't, wait 10 years and go, well, what if he puts money in America and goes to Europe and withdraws it twice or whatever?
Never thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they kind of have to think of that. So the banking staff, undoubtedly, and certainly parts of the U.S., probably had some problems with their other internet stuff and some applications they're working on, but the financial part of that stuff was solid. Yeah,
you might not be able to get to chase.com, but I bet you can get to your, the bank hasn't lost your money when DNS goes down, put it that way. I'm sorry, Mr. Plumber, we have no funds here.
Mexzot says, curious about why you gave up on Claude.
I liked Claude, and I still use Claude a bit in Copilot. I didn't realize I still had access to it. So you can get a certain amount of free Claude, but I then paid to $200 a month for the super codex from OpenAI. And I figured if I'm paying for that, I'm not also paying for Claude and all the other ones. So I canceled pretty much everything else that I had been using. I still have Grok, the $20 a month version, and I had a slightly more expensive tier of Claude, which is why I canceled that. And so now I've just got Codex or OpenAI Pro and Grok. Yeah, that's it. Okay. And I still like Claude. I still use it, but I just don't have very high thresholds or limits. So I use it to sanity check the work that comes out of Codex.
And Claude's the Anthropic one?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's Claude Sonnet 4.
It's like poetry.
Well, yeah, it's like an opus longer than a sonnet? I would think so. But it doesn't always work that way.
I'll find out.
Okay.
My British friend will know, and he'll tease me because I don't, so I will find out.
There you go.
On Dave's Garage, you did an episode on claiming SD cards are lame because they don't weigh 200 pounds. John Video says, is there value to doing this, or are you just testing or goofing around? I've said the goofing around part. Yeah.
Well, you got to boot from something, right? So is there value? No. I literally do, and this is the actual boot card that I use for a SCSI emulated virtual disk image that I can boot the PDP-11 from. So that is a much simpler solution, much more reliable, although it's on my desk because it's not currently working, so it's not really more reliable. But they're just, for me, something about the big physical media from the system back in the day and knowing that there's no modern pieces in that pipeline, that everything is running as it would have in the late 80s or early 90s when that machine was brand new. And so for some reason, even though I knew I wanted a big RA drive, and I'd spent a lot of time and money getting one and installing it and partitioning it and formatting it and copying data to it, booting it and running it, it was way more rewarding than I thought it would be. And maybe this is some kind of weird autism special interest thing, but for me, it kind of completed the mystery, or it completed the effect of now it's an 80s machine. Kind of like if you find a mid-century modern house that you love, it has a 65 vibe. that kind of thing. Well, now this machine has a real 80s vibe to it to me in a way that it didn't when it was booting off an SD card. So that'd be why.
It's authenticity.
Yeah.
It's the real deal. Yeah. Nothing fake or mysterious about it. It is. That's what it is, what it was. Steve Horn, any chance of running CPM in an emulator on that?
I bet it probably could. On my Vax, you certainly could. I know on my Vax, I've run the PDP emulator on the Vax and then run PDP stuff on the Vax. So they can certainly emulate, one layer of stuff like that. I don't know of a CPM emulator for the PDP-11. I bet it can and has been done. I've got a real CPM machine. I've got an Altair, so if I got to get the CPM out of my system, and I've got a K-Pro as well. So that's two CPM machines I have.
I thought you
three, because I have two K-Pros.
To possibilify. Any idea how the dual processors on the controller communicate with each other without bus or memory contention?
I don't for this case. I know for a simpler, I used to write code and debug the controller in my 94 Corvette. And it had two 65HC16s, I believe, that worked in lockstep. And then they had a shared memory buffer. But they just had a line, and they had a bit that they set high, which was like, I'm in charge right now. And it was, I don't know, they didn't have to do mutual because it was like a hardware line. And so they wouldn't stomp on each other when either one had the line high. And it was that simple. So when you've only got two CPUs, I guess you can do it with a simple mutex, which is like, hey, I set this line high and don't mess with it when you got to have a piece of an instruction to, were you able to set and acquire the line, which is basically your mutex set and acquire.
And there was some other bus kind of issue you were telling me about, I think with some memory is it on one of the PDPs or on the Vax?
Yeah, this was a terrible problem that chased me for months, so probably a year on the PDP-1134. Got this machine, got it working pretty quick order. Glen helped me out and got it up and booting with a Unibone, but I could not get it to access any of the drives. And I'd gone through the drives meticulously and cleaned everything and done all the work on the drives, but I couldn't read any of them. But I could seek two of them. I could run a seek test and they'd do the heads and communicate with the drives and do the thing. So I knew, and the controller would pass all tests, but when it came time to read it, data error, data error, data error, data error every time. And I was stuck. Then I was trying to find an alternative, and from Mitch at Keyways, I got a Emulex UC17 SCSI controller that would allow me to boot from an SD card or some other image and at least boot an operating system on the PDP-11. And so I was going to boot off the SCSI controller, but the first thing you have to do is run the firmware that's on the SCSI card in order to set the SCSI card up and tell it what drives are attached or have it do its dynamic scan. Well, to do that, there's only two I/O registers that you can communicate with. So it can't like map a ROM into memory for you. And so what you do is you poke special values in there, and I know them by heart right now. And they're like, actually, here, I've got the whole book.
Ooh, you wrote them down. There we go. Oh, everybody knows the secret now. It's documented. More importantly for you, because in 3 weeks you'll forget, and then you can watch this video and find them. Yeah,
I've done it enough times that I can almost do it from memory. I can do it from memory today, but if it's 3 weeks from now, I might as well look the numbers back up. But anyway, you do these in the machine language monitor, and you're poking values into special registers in the card that tell it, hey, go please deposit your firmware at address 2000 or 200, I guess it is. And so when you make the right incantation, it pokes its memory or its code into your memory, and then you run it from your RAM. But I could never get this to work. But it's such a weird and arcane setup with all these like 10-digit numbers with slashes and stuff that you have to get right that I assumed I was making a mistake somewhere in this. And I tried it so many times, I can't tell you how many times I went through this process, and there was just nothing in memory after. And then I realized maybe it can't. And so I tried something else that needed DMA, and it couldn't do it either. And so now I realized, I can't read from the drives. I can't deposit firmware to memory. I can't do DMA tests. Obviously, I've got, and my bus grant was all fine. I checked all that. And long story short, it turned out to be a problem with the actual, one of the CPU boards. There's big two boards that are about this long. And one of them had some kind of issue. So I got Mitch to send me a no and good board and put that in, solved the problem. Sold the old board to some sucker on eBay. No, I'm kidding. No, it's in my tub with a big sticker.
Not yet. Yeah.
Not yet.
Bids aren't high enough. No, I don't know. Oh, shit. Oh, that's terrible. Neverland System Zor. How the heck is that drive still running?
I don't know. I got to ask Mitch what history he knows about this drive because it looks new to me. And I don't think the housing is new, but the drive looks brand new. And I have a brand new drive mechanism in a foil bag from HP, who bought Compaq, who bought Deck. It was one of the latest stock or the last stock wound up on eBay, so I bought one. And this looks like it could be one of those brand new mechanisms. So that would explain how it could survive for 40 or 50 years. But they're pretty robust mechanisms. So as long as the platters aren't delaminating and the heads never crash, they're hermetically sealed. And the bearings are permanently lubricated, so they should, in theory, run a long time.
And I think you've received a lot of old equipment and stuff, but this drive was like uncannily clean. It
was. I didn't have to go through and tidy it up at all. So I'm not sure if he went through it very meticulously, or if it just happens to be an exceptionally clean drive. Yeah. A drive in a data center, in a real data center, shouldn't get very dirty. Most of my PDP stuff is pretty dirty by the time it gets to me, but probably because they were all smoking cigarettes in the data center at the time. But.
Yeah, could be because they've been sitting in some warehouse for a while too, or something. Or David F. 6326. Does anyone know the original price of this beast?
No, I wish I knew. I'd have to see if I could find an old price list. I'm sure it's shockingly expensive. I remember pricing my Vax in a Deck price list, and by the time I got all the memory added and everything, it was like $200,000 some dollars. So it's like, but if you're running a business, that would be a massive machine. You could run your Mervyn's store on that thing, so it's not an unreasonable investment, I guess. But I said Mervyn's because that's my benchmark for big business. If you can run a Mervyn's store, you have no apologies to make. No, I was watching a documentary on YouTube about the Vax 11780, and they mentioned in passing that all Mervyn's stores had their own 11780 for inventory control and payroll and all that. So I guess without that context, it sounds a little weird, but yeah.
Got my attention. That's still funny. Clint Rockabar, 8100. Wouldn't happen to be a throwback to one of the Deck machines at the U of R in the late 80s, early 90s, would it?
A throwback? Well, that's what got me interested in PDPs initially, was the set of them at the University of Regina, where I rode my bike down when I was like 12 or 13 and got time on the 1144, I think it was, on the weekends. So.
Pat Farrell, KTM, says, was this before, concurrent with, or after Deck was pushing hard on the HSC for Vax and PDP-10 systems?
I don't know. This is actually a microvax drive more than a PDP drive. I think it came in near the end of the PDP life cycle. There were SDI controllers, but there was the RA80 and the RA81 and RA82. There was various levels of these drives throughout the years. So my big one might be the last of that breed, which was really made more for the microvax setups. Where it ranks that acronym, the HSC, what did she say?
HSC, yeah.
HSC, I'm not familiar what that means. Okay. I know at some point the answer to every question was Vax or VMS at Deck. But.
So this might have been more of like a late sort of sustaining or last-ditch expansion use for these.
Yeah, if you were buying a PDP-11 near the end of the PDP-11 life cycle, this would be the drive you would get. Or if you were getting a Vax near the beginning of the microvax life cycle, this is what you would get.
Yeah.
Kind of spans them.
Eric Peterson, how will you maintain this beast when the inevitable head crash happens on the drive or the electronics go south?
Remove the mechanism carefully, throw it upon the ground, dance on its sticky bones, and put it in my spare mechanism that I bought last year off eBay. So hopefully it never comes to that, but I'm prepared.
Sticky bones. Okay. They'll be sticky Y?
Or
am I reading too much into this?
This was on Usenet in the 1980s, like internet flame wars. And some guy said to the other guy that he was going to split him open like a bag of ripe garbage and dance on his sticky bones. And I thought, that's pretty visual. That's a good one. Kind of stuck with me. So every now and then it comes up in my vernacular.
And my job's to... Mervyn's? Sticky bones? Where are these references coming from, Dave?
Explain yourself.
Yeah. Sometimes I might be the only one who's puzzled, but sometimes I'm not.
No, it's probably good to ask.
Rust and Magic. How often do you need to make an oil change on it?
There's no maintenance on it. There's an air filter.
Okay.
And there's a belt.
Air filter and
you
a
can
belt.
probably oil
it's
the
belt
hinges.
Driven,
But I'm not aware of any other regular maintenance required on these. So now my RKs are different. They're big. They got a big cartridge inside and two heads, and they're little. The servo motor is no joke. This big around that moves the head back and forth. It's scary to get your fingers near. So, but these are more modern. So
yeah. So the filters on that drive aren't like the I don't know what that material was, but the filters that came on that PDP on the 1173.
The 1134 where they were all brown and crusty.
Oh my God. And they just like disintegrated when you touched them.
Yeah. It is, but this one is still fresh and pluck. What's the word? Fresh and pliable.
Plush? Oh, fresh and pliable. Excellent.
Pliable.
Okay. That's what you look for in a modern filter.
Absolutely.
Physical-OG. But what happened? Oh, yeah. There's a few. What happened to the video between 1150 and 1245? And then Gearbox 101. Is it just me? And Stephen Wong, what did you put on this segment? And Hello Kitty Fan Man, where did the picture go? Why is there a blank screen between 11:45 and 12:34?
Well, I'd like to claim it was a mass stroke affected my audience. They lost vision briefly, and it came back shortly. No, I still don't know what happened, but when I rendered that video, that was a section with a screen overlay, and the whole picture is black. But when I go into Final Cut and I move the cursor, I can see the timeline, but it renders black in this one segment, and so I wound up having to just trim it, because on YouTube, if you publish a video and then the next day you go, oh, I got to fix it, and then you republish it, now you just screwed everybody because your click rate's going to be terrible because everybody saw it yesterday anyway, and so it's just a nightmare to try and be in that situation. So I just went in and on the live one, trimmed out the black section. So if you saw it with the blackness, you got to hear content that nobody else eventually got to see, because that 30 or 45 seconds was gone.
So when you go into YouTube Studio, you can edit the video and maintain the active posting, but actually chop.
Yes. You can't add, but you can take stuff out.
Okay. Yeah, cool. Back to something less serious. Not a Doctor 828. Aren't the drives susceptible to vibrations and read-write errors if those motors are that powerful and they're stacked on top of each other?
Well, there's only one motor, and it's external to the whole drive pack. So it's like a big motor. Here's a big drive pack, and there's a big motor out here, and it's got a belt that runs to the center spindle of the drive pack. So there's no motor in the drive pack, just a bearing at the bottom with a pulley, and this big motor spins it. They seem incredibly well balanced because they're spinning at 3,600 RPM, and there's no vibration. You hear it. You hear the whine like a turbine comes out of it, but you sure don't feel it. When the heads seek, because the whole mechanism, there's 14 heads, and there's 14 or 7 surfaces or whatever it is, and they interact, and it steps back and forth really hard. It'll shake the rack a little bit. So,
but that's also part of the it's built in some heavy metal, and that's why it weighs 200 pounds too. So
yeah,
it's built and designed to handle that kind of stuff. But I can imagine if you had. So yeah, you've got one of them in your rack and it'll move the rack. But would you ever have a situation where you had like 3, 4 of those, like a rack full of just drives, or would that be a bad setup?
Oh yeah, you're supposed to put 4 in a rack. So you can put 4 of these RA82s in a single rack, and they show you how to wire it and do everything with it. Okay. And I'm surprised that, the seek interactions don't bother it from one drive to the other, but I guess they're robust enough that it doesn't.
Yeah,
they're all internally on rubber isolators and stuff too.
That's what I'm imagining. Is the rack may be moving, but the device is stable enough in whatever system it's set up that it's not impacted by that. So
yeah, and a stepper motor, even if it does move the case back the other way, it's going to waste energy, but it will still step the right distance because it's a stepper motor. That's how I think it works anyway. Okay, let me know in the comments if I'm wrong on that.
There you go. And every time you talk about this old hardware and stuff, we get a whole bunch of folks interested or concerned, maybe curious about power consumption. So let's see if we can address a couple of those. WMRG says, do the lights dim when spinning up that monster?
No, but you can hear the sounds of other things change. So when I turn on the 2 big RL02 drives, you can hear the fans and everything run. And then when I click on the R82, you can hear them go boom. So just for a second or two. But I was looking at the inrush current on the RA82 drive, and it says it's 38 amps at 120.
Yeah,
that's a pretty good load. So,
yeah. Trevor Dennis says, how many of your neighboring houses saw their lights dim when you started it up?
Well, I'm in an area where I got big power. I got 600 amps coming in, so it doesn't phase it around here.
Yeah. So the Drew says, so do you have 400 amp residential service in the garage or splurged on 3-phase?
No 3-phase here. And I wouldn't need it because I have almost nothing that would use 3-phase.
Right.
But actually, I don't have anything that would use 3-phase here. But I could get something like a big mainframe or whatever, or a mill, but I don't have any current needs. So yeah, strictly single phase. I got 3 200 amp legs come in, each through its own separate automatic transfer panel, which is generator backed up. And it goes to a sub panel in different areas of the house or the detached buildings.
And you got to use your backup power again on the weekend for like 8 hours or something.
Yeah, we were out of power for probably 8 to 10 hours. It was an expensive addition because here you have to get enough power to power the entire load, or you need to automatically load shed. And I don't want to be the guy who says, I just spent 50 grand on a generator, but I can't have toast and the fridge on at the same time because I got to pick which breaker. So I wasn't going to pay for that setup. So I'm like, either do it to code where you power the entire house, or I'm not interested. And it took me about 10 years to find a company that could come in and say, yeah, we just need 3 transfer panels instead of, because the 600 amp transfer panel is like 20 grand and it looks like a fridge.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that. But you can get 3 200 amps, and it's, they're reasonable size. So it took a company, Washington Generators, here in my area, if you're interested. Great company to work with, and they had the knowledge to go in and do it turnkey, and then hand me the key at the end, and it just worked. So,
and you get frequent and long duration power outages. So
because I'm out in an area where everything is overhead lines, and we get a lot of windstorms. We've been out in bigger storms for up to 2 weeks. In the last couple of years, we've been out for a full week. Was it 10 days or a week? Somewhere around there.
Yeah. And you're just sort of outside of the, half a mile from the populated area. So it's like, we can send a crew and fix 500 providers or send a crew and fix 12. You 12 are going to wait. Yeah, it's
pretty much a truism. They get to me last. The question is, am I last a week from now or am I last tomorrow? I don't know. Yeah. Depends how big the outage is and how big the area impacted is.
Tracy Peak, how does this beast affect your power bill? Do you even know how your wife pays the power bill?
I haven't measured it now because what I've got is I've got a big 240 volt cable that splits into 2, or is it 4? It splits into 4 120 amp outlets. And so I've got the PDP plugged into one of those and the RL desk plugged into the other one, and I need meters on each of them and add them together, which I will do because I am curious. But
there you go. Yeah. That'll tell you about your consumption, but you're not going to look at the bill, though.
Well, you can do the math because I think we pay about 12 cents per kilowatt hour. So.
Okay, yeah.
But it's cold out now, and so I'm heating the shop with PDPs. I haven't turned on the electric heat in here yet because I've just got enough equipment that if I keep stuff on, it'll keep the place warm enough. So,
not necessarily an efficient way to heat your garage, but at least you're taking advantage of the heat that's being created from running the devices.
Well, it's equally efficient as electric heat.
Okay.
Now, if I had a natural gas stove out here or something, then it would be more efficient to use the natural gas. But if you're just running a resistive heater, no different than running a disk drive.
Yeah, and you don't keep your whole garage. Well, your garage isn't heated that hot when you do have it heated.
No,
and
I
it's
keep
pretty
it like
much
65.
Yeah, and it's sort of isolated to a little space heater for you right in the area where you're sitting, kind of. So it's not
I've got a little space heater at my feet that keeps me warmer, and then the rest of the place can be cooler.
Yeah, I heard you'd use the term too, and I was a little bit curious. Woodan says, "What the heck is a servant processor? Is that sort of a new variation on the master-slave kind of thing?" Yeah,
all my textbooks say master-slave, but some people are very sensitive about that. And so now there's a new terminology that I don't even know what it is. So I'm going to go master-servant as a compromise of trying not to hurt any feelings without changing too much all at once. So
Yeah. The other one, we get into this unit confusion. So I think you said, what is it, 200 LBS?
Oh, yeah.
And apparently that abbreviation got a few folks, I'd say a little more than half our viewers are outside of North America, probably.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. Well, of course, I knew pounds weren't universal, but I figured the abbreviation was fairly universal. But it looks like a byte. Instead of megabytes, it's LB. So I bet you that got as many people curious as, what the hell is an LB?
Well, yeah, Jimmy Zorb goes, okay, so GB is gigabytes, TB is terabytes, YB is yottabytes, LB is lottabytes?
Lottabytes. I like that.
Yeah. And then Mark MLI UK says, okay, so how many MB are in an LB?
Lots.
Yeah, lots, plenty. Yeah. Ein Chris 75. So L, like lots of bytes? Nope, pounds. Probably each byte a pound. So 1 kilogram a word?
Something like
sure
that.
what
I haven't done the conversion rate, but yeah.
Have to run the math on that one. Oh, and then yet West Fan Man says, is that 200 LB equivalent to 200 LardoBytes?
So LardoBytes. No, I haven't heard that one.
Oh, and then True River says, how many bytes in a lugabyte? So we've got lottabytes, lugabytes, LardoBytes. Man, we're inventing all kinds of new memory measurements here. That's fantastic. Maud Boivin. On old PC drives, you had to enter the bad sectors into something.
Yes. And so old PC drives would have an equivalent of a replacement control table, which is just a little reserved area of the disk that says, this block is bad, don't use it. This block is bad, don't use it. And this block is bad, don't use it. And that's because they weren't able to, at the file system level, accommodate new bad blocks. So you couldn't have a bad block in the middle of a partition. The drive had to sort of map it out for you, but it had to know which ones to map out.
Right.
And so some BIOSes provided you with a test. You would go into like the debug monitor and go to C800:5, would jump into the BIOS for your old MFM controller. And then you could go through and either scan for bad blocks while doing a low-level format or manually enter the bad block list. And while you were doing a format, there was often a label on the disk, and you could just enter the numbers off the label, and it would skip those ones as knowing bad from the factory. And so I always like to try to find drives that had a blank defect list if I could. So
Was that on the 1134 or 1173 that you had a drive that actually had a sticker on it? That'd
be 1173 because they were big MFM drives, yeah.
Yeah, and it had that sticker on it, didn't it?
Yeah.
Don't remember if it had many sectors listed on it, though.
I had about 8 drives before I got anything working. I bought just tons of ST Seagate, ST225s, and they're like a 10 or 20 or 30 megabyte drive in that range. Yeah. I just kept buying them, and they wouldn't work. And usually they were cheap, and I'd toss them, or if they were more,
that's where I was seeing them. Yeah,
I would return them, and so I went through quite a string of them before I found 1 or 2 that worked.
You were talking about the weight of the machine and moving around and getting one of your sons to help you, I think, put it on that nice lift you got. And at the time, you flashed up a little shot of an X-ray. A couple people were like, whoa, BGG, JP5EI, and IBM 29. Screws and rods in your back? What happened?
Got old. Spent too many years slouched in a computing chair, probably. Coding with bad posture. I don't know. I'm incredibly healthy, except for my spinal system, which tends to break down. So I got some arthritis in the hands and degeneration of the back and stuff. So I've had a laminectomy in my C5, C6, and I had a fusion, and I had a fusion of S1, L1 down there, and then rods and bolts put into time together so they wouldn't move around. And then I did a bunch of rehab, and now I'm fit like a bull. Just have to go through the different X-ray at the airport. Which I object to, because everything I have is titanium and is non-ferrous, and therefore it doesn't come through. But they go, do you have any metal in your body? I'm not going to lie. So I say, yes, but it's titanium. You have to go through here, and then I go through there. Yeah.
And you had that done, is that 2 years now?
It's got to be at least, 2 years, I think.
Excellent. And then you made a reference to some sort, you don't want to hear me talk about carburetors or something. So Camera Shy says, ooh, Edelbrock or Holley?
Quadrajet, baby.
Okay, there you go.
Only the most complex devices for me. I like a Quadrajet if it's running well and set up by somebody who knows what they're doing. I think a Quadrajet is just about unbeatable. But Holleys are easy to tune, right? You get them close, and then they'll just kind of run rich or run clean or whatever and bog when you step into them. I've had lots of Carter AFBs going back to like my 63 Imperial 413 had a factory one. And I've bought them and put them on the Chevy motors and stuff. So I've used all 3.
Wow.
But in working condition, set up properly, Quadrajet for me.
Big Blues Daddy says, what's that over the co-host's right shoulder?
That is a mesmerizer.
Get
them on eBay. Just search for mesmerizer. And they do stocks and bonds. And they don't do bonds. I guess they could do bonds if you entered the symbol for it.
Yeah.
They do stocks, weather, stuff like that. Cool visual patterns.
There you go. James S. 1787. How big is your garage?
It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 car. 10 if you put one on the lift, but I don't.
And you not quite doubled it after you moved into the house.
Yeah, it's a weird situation.
Yeah.
So it started out as like a drive-through garage with doors on both ends.
Right.
And you could almost put 4 cars by putting them too deep in there. But it was like a foot too short, even with like an M3 and Corvette. You couldn't get 2 cars well on both sides. And so when I needed the room and the kids got older and were getting to driving age and didn't want stuff street parked, I decided I was going to expand the shop and make it into a bigger shop as well. But by the time you expand it 4 or 5 feet and you do all the new roofing and joists and concrete and permitting and everything else, you might as well just double what I have and do a mirror image of it. And that's what I wound up doing basically. So I just kind of mirrored what I had. And a little section in the middle. So I went from 4 to 8, and you could park a car in the workshop area, which is 9, or put one on the lift, which is 10. But
and what was the timing of that in relation to you rebuilding that C10? Truck.
Right in the middle of it. So that's always the way to do a full restoration, is have your shop rebuilt in the middle of the restoration. That's what I did. Yes, I learned that one the hard way. So did the contractor, who had to kind of work around me.
So it would have been nice, I imagine, to have your lift for some of the early stuff you were doing on your truck before you did the add-on and got the lift?
I had the lift for all the assembly, not for the disassembly.
Okay.
And so tearing it down wasn't as bad because the frame was the last thing to come off. I left it on the wheels and stripped it down to the frame. Took the body off and the cab off and all that. But going the other way, the lift was very helpful.
I think we sort of talked about this, but John Burgess asked the question too. He said, so is this the primary heater in your shop, or is it the backup?
Right now, it's the primary.
Yeah. When the machines are running, that's what
Oh, I thought he meant versus the 1134. That's the backup heater because it makes the most noise. But
okay.
It actually doesn't make the most heat. Now the 1173 does, I'm sure.
There you go. Yeah. And Chevy USMC says, why would you work on carpet?
Well, it's good for the low back, but I got dogs, and so the dogs like to come out here, and it's their carpet. It's my old carpet from the living room, so they already got all their fur and odors into it. And actually, the reason I put carpet out here was for audio the first time, because this is just a big square blank space, and the acoustics were terrible, and I got a flat ceiling, so I've got a curtain of shame that I pull across now for audio recording, and I've got a carpet, and it absorbs a lot of the reflection, and I think the audio comes out pretty decent. So.
And the entire garage is not carpeted, to be clear.
No, it's like a 12 by 12 piece.
Yeah, it's that sort of the foyer of the garage, which is basically your office, right?
Yeah, it's over by the piano and the chandelier. That's why I keep the carpet, yes.
Well, that's why the carpet's there, yeah. Otherwise, the reflection of the chandelier off the piano is just terrible. Yeah, it'd be too much. Ellen the Beast 100 says, what happened to the Friendly Giant outro? And I think, again, that's where the confusion between the two channels. So I think you've used the Friendly Giant on Dave's Garage for All, but that has almost been exclusively every time on ShopTalk here. I've dropped that at the end of it. So, yeah. So if you aren't seeing the Friendly Giant, then you're probably not subscribed to ShopTalk on Dave's Attic. So there you go.
There you go.
And then related to that as well, Grotty Boots. I think we've had this question before. Why the surgical gloves when you move the furniture around in the Friendly Giant closing?
Okay, so there's a couple of reasons. When I'm working on stuff in the shop, I often do wear gloves just so I don't get dirty if I'm working on something that's, filthy. And I was watching a video, and I'm not going to name the channel, but the guy was holding up this thing, and he had these gnarly fingernails that hadn't been cut in like 3 weeks, and they were all black underneath, and I was just creeped out by that. And I don't like other people's fingernails and their nasty cuticles and hangnails and shit, so I'll put gloves on, and nobody have to look at my hands. My hands are fine, but... that's how it started. And then I realized I was doing the blue thumbs up in the animation. And I thought, I got the blue glove. And so then I did the thumbs up, but then I put it in black and white, and it makes no sense. So, but that's the origin story. I
think the other thing was that was filmed quite a while ago now, like
years
more
ago,
than 4 years. And I think in those early days, you were wearing gloves anytime you did any kind of work like that. Now on your videos, you're not so much. That is a bit of a spoiler to the snarky answer that I replied in the comments, where I said it was due to a horrible paper cut and hangnail back in the 80s, which kind of ruined your hand modeling career. And then you had to go into computer science because you needed to do something. So
that was master of my own domain.
I'm out. YD YD Nubbum. Yard Nubbum? YD Nubbum? Blah, blah, blah. Why are Canadian airports YYX? Ooh, I wanted to talk that, but they're not YYX. They are Y, but...
Yeah, they're Y, and then Regina is YQR, and YYC. What's Toronto? YVR? No, that's Vancouver.
YVR is Vancouver.
YYC
what is
Toronto?
YYC is Calgary, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, that would make more sense.
YYX is Toronto, maybe, is it?
I don't know. They don't make a lot of phonetic sense.
But they're not. They're not YY. Canada was assigned Y when they came to distributing those things.
They kept asking questions. Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
And they kept trying to explain it, and they didn't get it. It was a terrible.
I think A was already taken, eh?
Oh yeah.
So. Chris Seltzer. Oh, you also made a comment. Yeah, last time we mentioned at the end of the video. Oh, if you're, this is Dave's Shop Talk in Dave's garage, and in case thank you for making it to the end of the video. And Chris Seltzer says, well, who doesn't make it to the end of the video? So.
No, statistically, about 2/3 of the people. Actually, you lose on a YouTube video. I lose about 20% in the first 15 seconds. Whether there's people that don't like the way I look, don't like the topic, format, layout, audio, whatever. But that's pretty true of a lot of people. I mean, if you're Mr. Beast, you're probably not facing those kind of metrics. But for a regular channel like mine, then it kind of bleeds down to about 40% of the people, or 40 to 50% of the people. But right before the end, everybody can tell you're changing inflection and you're starting to wrap stuff up, and they start to bail pretty hard. And then so maybe 30% make it to the very end, or 35, somewhere around.
And that's why we joke about the hard cut. Okay, we're out of here, bye.
Yeah,
so people are into the videos now.
Well, doing that gives you two things. One, it gives you better retention as a percentage, but it also gives you the chance to fire up the next video in 5 seconds on autoplay. Whereas if I'm rambling at the end and you cancel out and go pick a different video, I don't get the credit, I guess, for you having watched my video and led to another video. Something like that.
End of questions, end of video. I'll let you wrap her up, man.
Well, thanks for joining us. Make sure you're subscribed. And if you got any good questions on any of the episodes or any of the content, just fire them away in the thing and put a question mark in there. Thing being the video comments and questions. Thanks for joining me out here in the shop. Thanks for the help tonight, Glenn. And we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye. This little chair will be waiting for one of you. And a rocking chair for another who likes to rock. And a big armchair for two to curl up in. All next time on Dave's Garage.
Was this before or concurrent with, was this before, concurrent with, or after Deck was pushing hard on the HSC for Vax and the PDP?
One more time? You said concurrent again.
Me.
I was going to wait until you were editing it and say, hey, by the way.
Yeah.